Hi, my friend. Welcome back to the show. I'm Sabrina, and I'm so happy that you're here because this conversation is a very timely one. Today, we're talking about how to handle food, body, dieting comments during the holidays so that you can go into the next few weeks feeling confident and rid yourself of any fear or anxiety that you have about possibly being triggered by Aunt Susan or Uncle Joe that might make comments about what you're eating or the way that you look, or talking about what is the newest diet that they're on and what they're gonna do once January 1st rolls around. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. So I want to start off by really taking a time to thank you for pressing play and listening to this, spending some time with me and taking time out of your day to listen to something that is going to help make your life better. That really tells me that you're someone who is growth oriented and you're looking for ways to experience more joy, more peace, more freedom in your life. And I really do not take that lightly. What's really cool is that I just noticed that, so this is getting released on December 11th. I'm pretty sure if I have my dates right. And what I realized was that we're actually coming in on right above the 2-year mark of when this podcast got released. So this got released 2 years ago on December 6th, 2022. Yeah, I've got my dates right. And it's just honestly been so amazing for the past 2 years to get to connect with all of you. And whether you are a OG who has been listening since 2 years ago, or you're brand new to the podcast, I am so grateful that I get to do this. I honestly, I get tears in my eyes when I think about it, that I get to sit behind this mic and just share things that have made my life and my clients' lives better and happier, and getting messages from you guys on Instagram and your reviews and your emails. It truly means the world to me. And what's so interesting is that, I'm behind a mic, I'm alone. And so it's hard to remember that I have people from all over the world listening to this. This podcast is now listened to in over 100 countries, which I can't even really wrap my head around that. So to receive messages from you guys, knowing that it's making an impact and it's creating this difference around the world is really not something that I take lightly. And I'm just so happy that I decided to launch this podcast, even though I was so terrified to do it. You guys, there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of what ifs, and this is going to be a lot of work, and what if it doesn't work? And all of that little chatter that we all get in our mind when we're scared, when we're doing something new. I get it too. I'm far, far, far from fearless. But I just do it anyways, because I know that it's going to be worth it. So thank you so much for listening, and please keep sending me messages, letting me know what are your biggest takeaways from the episodes, how it's creating an impact on your life. I got so many comments about my episode with Luke, it really warmed my heart because I love him so much. I'm so happy that I got to bring him on the podcast for you to meet him and to hopefully sense just how kind of a heart he has. And he really is just a beautiful, beautiful human inside and out. So I'm really happy that you enjoyed our conversation. I am more than happy to bring him back on the podcast. It's a treat for me to get to just chat with him. And if it's valuable for you, then that's a 2-for-1. That's a win-win, baby. So please let me know if you want to have him back on the podcast. I absolutely will do that. And when this gets released, I'm actually going to be on a plane, most likely, back from Arizona. So I'm going to be in Arizona for a week. I did this last December as well. I'm going to a business retreat, conference, whatever you want to call it, with my business coach and over 1,000 other incredible online business owners, entrepreneurs who are doing really, really, really cool work in this world and helping a lot of people. And it is so magical. So it's 3 days of just really intense personal growth and transformation. There's a lot of crying that happens, meditations, journaling, activities, guest speakers, just like all of it. And last year, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that it really changed my life. I came back from that retreat a completely different person. And the changes that happen in a room like that when you're immersed in it for 3 days, really just, they happen so rapidly and they're lasting. So I'm so excited to be going back this year. And I was only planning to go for the 3 days. So it's in Phoenix. And I was only planning to go for the 3 days because I was like, December is a really busy month. You know, I have so much going on, which I will tell you about it because I'm so excited about the things that are coming up and I cannot hold it to myself any longer. So I'm going to share it with you, but I have a lot going on. So I was like, you know, December, crazy month, the holidays. I just don't think it's a good idea to stay longer and to make a trip out of it. But then my 2 business girlies, both of which have been on this podcast. So Rebecca Kiger and Rachel Hepner, which was on the podcast very, very recently, they just convinced me. They convinced me to stay longer and to spend a few days in Sedona. And I went to Sedona for my first time in April this year. And when I tell you that I fell in love with Sedona, it was life-changing, magical. I cannot stop thinking about it still. So when they were telling me that they really wanted to stay longer and just make a trip out of it and take some time after the conference to integrate everything that we're going to learn and do some masterminding, I couldn't say no. So we are going to be staying a few days longer after the retreat to spend some time in Sedona. So I'm really excited about it. And I'm going to probably record an episode when I get back to tell you everything that I learned, all the new lessons that I got, the tools that I now have in my toolbox, because whatever I get to learn and the ways that I get to grow, I want to share it with you so that you can benefit from it too. So all that to say, I'm probably on a plane right now back to Montreal when this gets released. And I mentioned this, that this girl has been very busy lately. I have a lot of things that I'm super excited about and that I'm working on. And I have been going back and forth about whether I want to share it fully, publicly, on this podcast, on social media yet, because there's still some uncertainties about when this is going to be ready to go out and to launch and to be available for you guys to enroll in and to consume. But I've been kind of putting out some teasers on my Instagram. So if you follow me on social media at Sabrina Magnan Health, then you may have seen that I've posted a few things about this. But I decided that I want to share some details with you. Even if I'm not sure about what date exactly this is going to be available, I'm so excited about it. And I want to share it with you because this is something that has been in the works in my little brain of mine for a few months now. It's something that I've been wanting to do, and it's something that I actively started creating a few weeks ago. And it's just going to be the best thing that I've ever created. And yeah, let me just give you a few details. So as you know, I've been running my group coaching program for years now, the Food Freedom Academy, and it's been life-changing. It's been incredible to work really closely with my clients, see them every single week, twice a week on coaching calls. And I love doing it. It's my passion. And then over the past few months, I've just been asking myself the question, how can I help more people? How can I make this more accessible? Because the truth is that when you're working with me so closely in, this small group setting and you're getting coached by me personally, of course, a high level of support is going to come with a higher investment. And I know that it's not possible for everyone. I know that there's a lot going on right now in terms of finances and what's going on in the world. And I'm cognizant of that. I'm aware of that. I'm sympathetic for that. And I really was asking myself the question, how can I help more people? How can I have more of an impact and reach more people in a way that's going to be more accessible? And the answer to that was to create a online course, a program that is really going to be the most comprehensive thing that you need in order to finally overcome binge eating, overeating, emotional eating, food obsession, breaking free from yo-yo dieting and diet culture, and finally create a healthy and peaceful relationship with food and your body. And when I say that it is the most comprehensive program, I really mean it. And there is so much that is going into the creation of this program, which is why I was hesitating sharing the details with you, because I don't know how long it's going to take for me to finish this, because there's so much work that is going into this. I mean, I started a few weeks ago and I've been working on it probably around 20 to 30 hours a week. And I am not even done the first module. So there's really so much work that's going into it. And the driving question that I'm asking myself as I'm creating this is, can someone, just by taking this, just by going through this on their own, can they have everything that they need to address the root causes of their issues with food and have all of the tools, the strategies that they need to really create a change that is going to be long lasting, permanent, forever in their lives? So that is the driving question that is helping me create this course. And it's going to be Food Freedom Academy 2.0. So there's going to be changes in the level of support that you have, and there's going to be some things that are going to make it a lot more accessible for more people. And if you're listening to this right now and you're Food Freedom Academy client currently, you're going to get access to this. So don't even worry, like, you're getting access to all of it. It's yours. So I'm sharing this with you just to let you know that it is coming. So if you're someone who's been listening to the podcast, or you've been following me on social media and you've been wondering how you can work with me, and maybe where it's been for the group coaching program hasn't been something that's feasible for you, this is going to be like, it's almost a steal. And I don't even know if my team is going to let me do it, because it's going to be such an amazing way for you to access all of my resources, all of my knowledge. So long story short, the reason why I'm sharing this is that it's going to be launching in 2025. And it's going to be the goal. The goal is end of January, beginning of February. Now, this, like I said, it's taking me a lot of time to create this, because it's so comprehensive. You should see my work space right now. It's chaos. There's books and papers everywhere. I am accumulating and putting together all of the knowledge of the past 10 years of my life, and asking myself, what needs to be in here? What doesn't need to be in here? Like, what's really necessary? So if you want to be the first notified when this goes live, when you can access this and enroll, then you can get on the wait list immediately. So I'm going to give you the link. It is sabrinamagnon.com/FFA dash waitlist. So you can get on that wait list, and there will be limited spots the first time that this goes live. And there's going to be some extra founding member perks as well. So if you want to be, at the front of the line to know when this is available, then get your little butt on that wait list. And like I said, I am going to do everything in my power to get this out and available to the world as soon as possible, because I cannot tell you how excited I am about this, how proud I am about this. So I'm sharing it with you. You have the first exclusive scoop right now. So I'm going to leave that link in the show notes as well. So sabrinamagnon.com/FFA dash waitlist so that you can hop on that. Okay. So let's get into it. I just wanted to share that with you, but let's get into it. The reason why this conversation around how to handle comments about food and your body and dieting during the holidays came up is a few reasons. It's very timely. Obviously, we're about to head into Christmas break in a few weeks, and this is a time where you're seeing people, family members, friends, colleagues, maybe even you're going to Christmas parties that maybe you haven't seen in a long time, or you're having to dress up, put a dress on, a skirt on, maybe for the first time in months. Maybe you're anything like me, you've been wearing leggings exclusively, and now you're having to put fancy dress pants on or jeans, and you're like, oh God, I hate having to do this. And I was having a conversation with one of our Food Freedom Academy clients this week on our coaching call, and she was asking me advice and tips on what to do when you're going to a social event or a holiday party, and that someone in your family is going to make a comment about you choosing to have the slice of cake for dessert, or you choosing to go for that second plate of food because you're still hungry, and then making a comment about it. Or people seem to have no filter when it comes to what they think is appropriate to say to a person. So someone might make a comment about the way you look, thinking that that's a perfectly acceptable comment to make in this day and age, which is crazy to me, but it happens. And so I want to talk about what to do so that you can go into these situations feeling really confident, not feeling nervous that you're going to be triggered and not want to eat for the rest of the night, or not want to take pictures and not enjoy your time because you're trying to hide yourself and you're self-conscious about what people might be saying or talking to each other about you behind your back. So I actually wrote down 8 things that I'm going to share with you. And the last one, I think you're going to like the most. If you're anything like me, you're going to like this one a lot. And so let's get into it. One thing that I want to mention is that your relationship with that person who makes the comments, or those people, if it's multiple, is going to matter. So if this is someone that you are closer with and more comfortable with, that you can have more open conversations around this with, then some of the tips that I give you are going to be more aligned and appropriate. Whereas if this is someone that it's like a colleague that you don't necessarily have a super close relationship with, then other tips that I give you here are going to be more appropriate for this situation. So this is where you really want to tune into your own relationship with these people and what feels comfortable for you. All right, so the first thing, and this is probably going to be more for people who you are closer with and have a more open relationship, and it's about setting loving boundaries with those people. So what I mean by that is when I first started working on my relationship with food in my body, and I was like, I'm going to stop dieting, I'm going to start eating more, I'm going to allow my body to come back to where it needs to be. I was at that time what I describe as an armor against diet culture. So you have an armor against diet culture. When you're still in it, your armor is non-existent. So if someone makes a comment about dieting right away, you're like, ooh, let's talk about it. Or someone makes a comment about your weight, you're like immediately triggered. So as you start doing this work, your armor against diet culture will get thicker and thicker over time, which means that over time, comments about food in your body will be less and less triggering until a point where you just don't experience any kind of emotional reaction. And that's where I'm at. Anyone could make a comment about food or my body and it would just completely roll off my back. But when I was first getting started, oh my god, my armor was very, very thin. And so I knew that any kind of comment about the way that I look or my body or the things that I was eating could be super triggering and could get me to retreat back into my old behaviors of restriction and dieting. And I didn't want that. So I sat down with my parents and I told them, hey, from this point forward, and at the time, they didn't know. They didn't know that I had struggled with an eating disorder, right? Like I was very good at hiding it. They saw that I had lost weight, but it's tough because at the time I was getting compliments about it. And I wasn't skin and bones. I was skinny, very, very skinny and underweight and much thinner that I needed to be, but it wasn't like this girl needs to be hospitalized. So at the time, I don't think they realized the extent to which I was suffering, and how difficult this journey back to health and happiness would be for me. So I sat them down and I said, hey, from this point on, I don't want to hear any comments about my body, whether it's a positive one or a negative one. I don't want to hear any comments about the way that I exercise. Same thing, positive or negative, or about food. So what I'm putting on my plate, if I'm going for a second plate, if I'm choosing not to have dessert or to have dessert, I don't need any external influence on the choices that I make, because at the time I did not trust myself. So any comments from the outside world would make me doubt myself even more. Oh, should I be going back for a second plate? Like, I think my body is telling me I should, but my dad's saying I shouldn't. So this process at the beginning is really a process of getting to trust yourself again and setting boundaries about external comments can be extremely beneficial. And for me, it really did make such a big difference. So if there are people in your life, maybe it's your siblings or your parents, anyone that you feel comfortable with, you could give them a call or sit down with them even before the holidays start, if you can. Obviously, it's not always possible. Or even just send them a text if that's easier for you, and just let them know. And I actually, when I was talking to my client about this, I gave her some advice on the way to bring it up. And she was like, can you just say it for me? Like, that was so well said. So if you need, I'll give you some ways that you can bring this up, and you can even write it down. You can copy paste. You can take everything I say word for word, but it could be something along the lines of, hey, let's call this person Susie. It's the first name that came up for me. Hey, Susie. So the past few weeks or few months, I have been working really hard to rebuild a healthy relationship with food and with my body. I have spent so many years in my life dieting and restricting food and trying to lose weight. And all that's ever done is made me feel really, really anxious and guilty and ashamed about my eating habits. And it's created more disordered eating habits. I overeat because of it. I don't know how to listen to my body anymore because of it. And what I thought was helping me get healthy actually has made me a lot less healthy. And I'm learning about all of the dangers of dieting and how bad it is for your body and for your mind and for your emotional health. And so I'm really committed to rebuilding an intuitive relationship with food and with my body so that I feel more neutral around food, so that I'm not scared of food anymore, and so that I can listen to my body and stop eating when I'm full instead of overeating. I know that's a mouthful, but that's what came up for me, okay? And then you can say, so with that in mind, what would be really helpful for me as I'm going on this journey is to, and as I'm learning to trust myself again, is to limit any kind of external comments about what I'm eating or what my body looks like. It could be exercise as well, because that can be really triggering for me. So I know that your comments aren't malicious. They're not coming from a bad place. I know you want what's best for me, but what's best for me right now is really focusing on healing my relationship with food and my body. So the reason why this can be so helpful is because, like you say to these people, they are not making these comments out of hatred or out of spite. Like, most of the time, these comments are coming from a good place. They think that they're doing the right thing, that they're quote unquote worried about you and your health. So when you can frame it in this way, that this is very intentional and that this is for your optimal health, your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, then they know that you know what you're doing and you're very mindful of the choices that you're making and you're doing this all intentionally, and you can maybe ease some of that fear that they might be having about the choices you're making. So setting those loving boundaries can be really, really helpful. And I'm hoping that the people you do this with respect those boundaries. But if they don't, then we can move on to some of the other tips that I have for you, because if they don't, that's not the end of the world. There are still things that you can do. So the first one is setting those loving boundaries. Now, the second thing is to prepare yourself ahead of time. So this is something that I do with my clients all the time, whether it is if they're going on a trip or they're going to a event where there's going to be like a buffet, or they're about to go see someone that is always talking about dieting and can be really triggering for them. Preparing yourself ahead of time can be extremely helpful. And what this looks like is when you are in the moment and you're surrounded by people, you're surrounded by food, you're surrounded by loud noises and comments and distractions, that's a lot. It's a lot for your nervous system. Like, it's overstimulating no matter who you are. So when you're in this environment where there's already a lot going on, and now you're trying to change the way that you respond to comments, and you're trying to operate differently than you have for years or even decades, it's really hard to do that because there is so much going on. And so your brain that operates on the law of least effort, in a moment like that, it's going to do what it knows. So it's going to retreat into this triggering state if someone makes a comment. It doesn't know how to behave in a new way if you haven't given your brain those instructions ahead of time. So what you really want to do when I say prepare yourself ahead of time is to prepare yourself for how you are going to navigate these comments if inevitably someone does say something about your weight or about how you're eating or makes a comment about the diet that they're doing, so that you know, okay, there's a very good chance that someone says something about one of these topics. And so when they do, or if they do, then this is how I'm going to respond. And don't worry if you're like, I don't know what my options are here. I'm going to get into some different options of ways to respond. But really being able to prepare yourself ahead of time so that when it does happen, you're not on the spot like, ooh, what do I do? How do I respond? You already went through the scenario in your mind, so you know what to do. So now the question is, what are my options? How can I respond? So that's my third point for you, is to change the topic. So let's say someone starts talking about the diet that they're on, or starts talking about your weight or what you're eating. You could just change the topic. Like, oh, I'm you know what? I'm really trying to heal my body image and my relationship with food. So can we talk about something else? Or I really like talking to you, but I prefer to talk about other topics than weight or dieting. Have you seen the newest X movie or whatever has come out? Or can I tell you about a new book that I'm reading? So, and it doesn't matter if it's so obvious that you're trying to change the conversation. Like sometimes I have no problem being very obvious that I don't want to talk about something. I'm very mindful of my energy and what I give my attention to. So if I'm noticing that we're going down a rabbit hole talking about a topic that really just doesn't feel good, and that feels like it's taking my power away, or it's giving more energy towards negative things, I just don't want to talk about it. And so sometimes, whether it's with Luke or with friends, I feel very comfortable doing this with Luke because, we're dating. So we have very, very open conversations about this. But I'll just say, hey, I just really don't feel like talking about this right now. Can we talk about something else? And then the more you do this, the more people will just expect it, respect it, and honor your boundaries. Like, it's very rare that you'll have someone being like, no, we have to talk about this. Most of the time they'll be like, oh yeah, no problem. Let's talk about something else. So that's one of the ways that you can approach this, is to just change the topic. And don't worry, it doesn't need to be like super sly and subtle. You can just say, hey, I don't want to talk about this. Can we talk about something else? And really do it from a very respectful and loving way. Like, it doesn't need to be rude or mean. It could just be like, hey, like, I appreciate your concern. I just don't really want to talk about this right now. So another way that you can approach this is to excuse yourself. So this I'll also do. It rarely happens that I need to do this anymore, because it's very rare that I'm in an environment where someone doesn't respect my boundaries and is talking about something that I don't want to talk about. But it can happen. And sometimes it just means removing yourself from the conversation. So let's say you're in a group of women who are all talking about the diets that they're going to be doing in the new year, and you're feeling activated and dysregulated. Your nervous system doesn't feel great. You're having an emotional response to it, especially if you're in a group. Just say, oh, sorry, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to call my son, or whatever it might be, or even just leave the conversation. Sometimes you don't even need to give a justification for why. And if it's a one-on-one conversation that you might need to have a better reason, just like, oops, sorry, like I'm going to go to the bathroom, and just excuse yourself from the conversation. And if you have someone at this gathering that you do trust, that you do feel comfortable with, so it could be your partner, for example, you can go and find safety in him, knowing that he makes you feel comfortable and safe, or her. Or you can go into the bathroom, take a few deep breaths, do what you need to do to bring yourself back to a state of safety, grounding yourself, and then going back out. So that's another way that you can handle this, is to just leave. So another way that you can navigate situations like this is, if you feel comfortable to, and this again is not for everyone, is to challenge the conversation. So if this is someone who you feel is relatively open-minded, open to new ideas, to different perspectives, then you can share what you've been learning about intuitive eating and changing your relationship with food and the reasons why you chose to stop dieting. You can ask them if they're interested in hearing more about this approach where food is peaceful and can help you live a healthier life without the stress of obsession or calorie counting and body shaming. So an example of a way that you can handle this is, oh, I used to think that way too, but I'm so happy that I've learned about intuitive eating and that I've been working on having a more neutral approach to food. I feel so much better and more at peace and more free. Have you heard about it? And then if they're open to it, then absolutely go ahead and teach them about what you've been learning. I've actually had quite a few of my clients tell me that they've brought up this conversation at work with colleagues and educated them on what they're learning, which is so exciting for me because it's like, what a ripple effect of being able to help someone who might be where you were a few months, a few weeks even ago, and just kind of helping them see a different way of approaching it. So you can challenge the conversation. My sixth point that I wrote here is that you don't need to justify your choices. So this was the conversation I was having with my client, and we were kind of role playing what would happen if someone made a comment about her choosing to go for the dessert or whatever decision she made around food. And the first time we did it, she felt the need to justify why she was making that decision of like, oh, well, I don't eat this way all the time, and it sounded good, and this is a holiday. And I kind of just stopped her and I asked her, does it feel good to feel like you need to justify your choice? And she said, honestly, like, yes and no. But the more I think about it, no, it doesn't feel good. And I told her, you don't need to justify the reason why you're making any decision. Whether your decision is around food, to go for a second plate, or to have a bread roll, or to have a dessert, or your decision is around exercise, to not exercise, or what you're wearing, especially women, especially if you're someone who's been stuck in diet culture, a culture that is designed to control women and to take your power away and give it to other people. We feel like we owe people an explanation as to why we're doing certain things, or especially women who live in a larger body. You almost feel like you need to tell people that you're dieting and you're trying to lose weight. Like, oh yeah, I am like this, but at least I'm trying to do something about this. Where it's like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to justify. You don't need to give someone an explanation. Your choices are your choices. If your body is telling you that you want to have another piece of pie, then go for it. If your body is telling you that it's sore and you don't want to work out that day, no one deserves an explanation for that. As long as you feel good about the choices that you're making and you're honoring your body and your mental health, then that's all that matters. So if someone makes a comment, and what I was telling to this client is that for me, if someone makes a comment about, it really rarely happens because this is what I do for a living. So I don't think that people would be compelled to do that anymore. But if someone were to make a comment about what I'm eating, my response would just be like, yeah, I'm having pizza. that's it. I've made this choice. It was intentional. It was what I was craving. And that's all there is to it. And that kind of reminds me of the saying, like, no is a complete sentence. Well, your response, your desire, the reason why you're doing it is also a complete sentence. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for it. You don't need to tell someone that you skipped breakfast in order to have this. And you also don't need to skip breakfast in order to have that, but that's another conversation. And that actually reminds me that right now we're having a conversation around how to handle comments, but I also had a conversation with my friend Kelly Lyons a few weeks ago, and I'm pulling it up right now so that I can tell you it got released October 23rd, How to Survive the Holiday Months Without Binge Eating. So if you want to take a look at that as well, we talk about practical tips to make sure that you're not in this state where you feel this urge to overeat until you feel uncomfortable. So definitely check that out. But yeah, you don't need to justify your choices. The seventh piece that I have written for you is to honor your body and learn to say no. A big reason that people feel this need to keep eating or to try everything is because of this fear of being rude or impolite. I talk about this a lot, that food is not just fuel. Food is emotional, and food is used as a way to show love. It is used as a way to connect. And around the holidays, especially in social settings, people are coming up to you to offer you to eat more. Sometimes it's the host, and we can call them food pushers, that are just, they're trying to be nice, right? And they're trying to be polite, but some people can gain their self-worth from other people eating their food, especially if it's a special recipe. But it's really important for you to learn to honor your body. It's not your responsibility to make someone happy by eating more food at the expense of your body and your comfort. And I know that for me, this is not related to food, but it's in the same vein. When I started moving away from drinking alcohol, especially during COVID, I would spend a lot of time at my sister's and my brother-in-law's place. And I would have a lot of dinners there. And every night, my brother-in-law, Phil, would offer me wine and would kind of like gently pressure me to have a glass of wine. And he was doing it from the goodness of his heart because they are such incredible hosts, and they're doing that as a way to show love. But for me, I really had to get to a point, because I said no every time. I had to get to a point to say, hey, Phil, I really appreciate it. I know that this is coming from a place of love, but for me, I'm actually going to have a better evening. I'm going to feel better physically and mentally if I don't drink. So being able to communicate the reason, you're not saying, I don't want it because I don't want your stuff. You're saying it like, for me personally, I'm actually going to have a better time here if I honor my body. So some ways that you can approach this with food is, let's say someone is offering you a second plate or they're offering you more food. You can say, it was so delicious. I loved it. I'm so full though, so thank you. You can have that piece. Or, I'm pretty satisfied, but can I take it to go? Like, can I take some with me in a container? Telling them like, don't worry, I'll tell you if I'm still hungry, but right now I'm all good. And what I'll often say, this is one of my personal favorites, is I would love to eat more food. And it's true. Like, I wish I had more space in my stomach right now, but I couldn't possibly have another bite without feeling uncomfortably full and stuffed. So there are really so many ways that you can say this in a way that is respectful, that you're helping them understand, I love your food and I want to try it so badly, but I know that if I have more, I'm going to feel sick. So you're really explaining that the goal is your comfort. The goal is enjoying your time at this event, and it has nothing to do with their food. All right. So now we are on to the very last thing that I have for you. And I'm laughing because sometimes I like to be sassy. Okay. And so my last point for you is be sassy. So let's say, and this is not for everyone, okay? Disclaimer, it's not for everyone. But sometimes if, let's say, someone comes up to you and makes a comment about your weight, like, oh, it looks like you've put on a few pounds, you can say something like, did you say that to intentionally hurt my feelings? So then you are putting it back on them and you're helping them analyze and reflect on, why did I make that comment? Another way that you can do it is just to repeat back what they said to you. So let's say they say, oh, it looks like you gained a few pounds. You can just repeat back, it looks like I gained a few pounds, and just silence and have them sit in the silence and see what comes up for them. Because oftentimes people will make comments without thinking about the intention behind it. They're just going to make comments without realizing that this could actually be a very hurtful comment. So you can, and I'm saying be sassy, but really you're holding space for them to evaluate the reason why they're making a comment and also the impact that it has, so that hopefully they learn from it and don't make that comment to someone else and hurt that person's feeling. So another way that you can approach this is, let's say someone says, it looks like you've gained weight in the past few months. You can have some sarcasm and say, oh my God, thank you. What a nice thing to say to someone. Honestly, like, I don't know if this is good advice. Maybe don't take this advice, but sometimes if it's someone that you feel comfortable saying something like that to, you can take the sassy road and decide to have them understand the impact of the comments that they make to people. So that's what I got for you. A little bit of a longer episode, but I hope that you got value from it. And if you need, listen to it again and take some notes about how you will approach the holidays in a way that protects your peace and so that you can focus on what truly matters, which is being with the people that you love, enjoying their presence, feeling happy, and really just enjoying the holidays. And as a way to show people in your life that you love them, share this episode with them if it is something that they might be struggling with, stressing out about, or if this is someone who might need to hear this, right? Like if this is someone who you're like, I want to set loving boundaries, but I don't want to do it directly, so I'm just going to send them this episode. Go ahead and do that. I mean, that's a great idea too. So share this episode and let me know in my DMs on Instagram, Sabrina Magnan Health, what your biggest takeaway was from this episode. And even if you don't want to share your biggest takeaway, just connect with me. You can tell me anything that's coming up for you as we head into the holidays, or share any topics that you would like me to talk about going into the new year. And this is your reminder that if you want to be the first notified when my brand new Food for an Academy 2.0 program, more accessible, more effective than ever before, gets released in 2025, head to the priority waitlist, sabrinamagnan.com/FFA-waitlist. So I love you so much. Thank you for listening, for being here, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.